He's right there.
This episode of the Bucktails podcast is brought to you by Pistol Creek and Trip Sporting Goods.
Oh, good blood. All right, that's some good blood here.
Shut up. Yeah. Look at that. Woo. Good deer, babe. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Bucktails podcast. This is your host, Eli Self. I'm here today with John Browning, and we are going to talk all things Pistol Creek today, how turkey season has been going, what birds have died. I know birds have died nationwide, top to bottom, southeast, Midwest, North. I mean, they've died all over the place this year. And just going to talk about turkeys. This may be my first turkey episode ever on the podcast, but yeah, welcome in, John. Thank you for coming on tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. So I don't know if I've ever told you this. I definitely never put this on the podcast, but how I got my start into turkey hunting. It was before I ever knew John, but I was involved with an organization called United Special Sportsmen's Alliance, and they allowed kids with terminal illnesses or life-changing ailments. You know, I've got the physical disability going on, so I got to kill deer in Illinois, Alabama. I killed a bear in Wisconsin. I went turkey hunting in southern Alabama. It was actually Mulberry Creek Hunting Club. They put on, it's like the John LeMaster annual like disability hunt. But at this place, we went and stayed there in Alabama, and it was one of those places where you get up in the morning, you go out, it's a lot like South Georgia, sandy pines, things like that. But you could hit a owl hoot or a crow call first thing in the morning, and you would hear like 8 gobbles every single morning I ever went there. I mean, there were turkeys all over the place. So that's how I got my start into turkey hunting. I don't know if I'd ever told you that, John, but
No, I knew you had done that hunt, but I didn't know that's where you got your start.
and then through them, I killed a Jake. I lost a gobbler, too far of a shot, really. And then I killed a nice tom down there. But yeah. Do you remember your first turkey hunt, or like when did like the fire begin for John Browning?
Okay. Well, this is going to be a long one, but
Okay.
so my father didn't turkey hunt when I was growing up. In fact, my father probably wouldn't have deer hunted if I hadn't have twisted his arms to. He was more of a rabbit hunter, squirrel hunter, small games guy, and fisherman. But we hunted in the fall, and it was not until I turned 16, which was what 34 years ago, that I turned 16, and I had the ability to go on my own. And honestly, I was just trying to recreate deer season. I loved it, so much that the thought of going 9 months without getting to go deer hunting again was just torture to me. So when I turned 16, I took up turkey hunting and was awful at it. Was And I didn't know what I was doing. So, but unfortunately, there was a man in our hometown in Gainesville named Herb McClure, and he ran the sporting goods section at Gibson's, which was the local equivalent of, I guess, Walmart or Kmart back then. And he sort of gave me some pointers and got me started where I at least heard some turkeys gobbling and answering me. And then my brother-in-law, Brent Goodman, probably when I guess I was 19 or 20. He was a good bit older than I was. Not a good bit. He was a little bit older than I was. He may hear this. I don't want to say that. But he took me in and actually he took me from the point where I could actually go out and hear turkeys. And he sort of said, okay, here's how you kill them. And between Herb and Brent, my brother-in-law, they created a monster. So that's how I got started. And so I guess I was 19, and Brent, my brother-in-law, called in the first turkey I ever killed. And I was fortunate enough earlier this spring to get to hunt in Florida with him and watch him kill his first ever Osceola. So it was sort of sort of a really nostalgic hunt for me there in Florida.
Yeah, kind of a full circle deal.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, the name Herb McClure, a lot of people in North Georgia
Hmm.
um, know that name, and it's synonymous with Blue Ridge Mountains and turkeys.
Right.
I forget he's written a few books. I read one of them while I was working at Tritz one day.
Hmm.
Like read it cover to cover. I mean, and it's about like reading the 10th Legion, the North Georgia version, for the
Right.
Blue
Yeah.
Ridge Mountain birds. But
Well,
a lot of
here's a neat story on that. I think it's the Turkeys of the North Georgia Mountains, I think is the book he's written. The forward in that book was written by a guy named Doug Grindle. And I'm sitting on the property we purchased from Doug Grindle right now. So up here, out where I'm at, up in here in Suches, this was all Doug Grindle's property. He wrote the forward for Herb McClure's book. I always thought that was really neat. I didn't know that back in the day, but one day reading Herb's book, I looked at the forward. I said, "Well, doggone, there's Doug Grindle writing the forward for it." So, and I now live on property we purchased from Doug Grindle. What, 40, 30 years ago, something like that.
yeah, definitely a small world, or it seems small sometimes, but that's all the connections there within the turkey woods and just the turkey community. That's pretty wild.
It's a
Um,
small world, and we'll probably get into some of that here before we're over with. But it's definitely a small world.
oh yeah. So yeah, so I was interested to hear kind of how you got your start turkey hunting. I mean, some people, like I talked to interviewed Jay Maxwell this past spring, and he's, since he was 5, 6, 7 years old, have been carrying turkeys out. Was blessed to hunt from a very young age, and some people started hunting outright at 25. And I know you've hunted your whole life, but turkeys, I didn't know when you started turkey hunting, so that's interesting. As a teenager, you started getting after it, but so yeah, we can go ahead and jump into this season. That was kind of the point of this whole episode, but I usually like to ask a starting story, kind of how everything got rolling for you.
Right.
So I know you've been to Florida, up north, Wyoming, I think Montana. You can get into more of that about how all those trips went, but one specifically I want to hear about is the turkey that kicked your tail in Suches a few weeks ago.
You talking about the one that broke my leg?
Yeah, that one. That's it.
Well, so sometimes you'd rather be lucky than good, but sometimes you got to pay for it. So I had been seeing this turkey and honestly been letting him go. For those of y'all don't know, my youngest daughter Maddie's a big turkey hunter, and we had been seeing a bird regularly up here on our family land, and um, I just hadn't really hunted him, and was working on the tractor one day and happened to see him. I had just got done bush hogging, and as soon as I got done bush hogging, he was out in the meadow that I just bush hogged and came by. That was the second time I'd seen him that day, and I finally decided, you know, he's asking for it. So I went up to the top of the hill, parked the tractor, ran down. I couldn't find anything to wear except for my 15-year-old daughter's leafy flodge top. Grabbed my shotgun, a head net, a camouflage hat, mouth call, went down there in tennis shoes and blue jeans, and set up where I thought the bird wanted to go to, and it was one of those hunts that it was, I called to him maybe 3 times, and it was, it's one of those that never happens. Like I said, you'd rather be lucky than good. And he came, busting in. A nice bird. I've got him sitting right out here on the porch right now, drying out his cape and everything. He's a nice bird, but came running in, hit him just right, and shot him at about 30, probably about 30 yards. But he's right on the other side of a ditch. And when I shot, the second I shot, I heard a gobble from right in that area, and immediately thought when I heard the gobble, well, I've missed him. And so I pop up real quick and look, and I see the turkey's laying there, and realize real quick what's actually happened. There's another turkey somewhere, and he's gobbled at me. but the bird started flopping a little bit, and we may get into Florida, and y'all might understand why I might want to get to the bird really quickly when you hear the Florida story. And I run over there, and I had to cross this ditch. It was about chest high, and as I started down the ditch, I felt something slap me on the back of the leg. That I thought a log had just slipped up and hit me on the back of the leg. And but as I came up the other side of the ditch, I realized my leg was no longer working, and I had ripped my calf muscle. Actually, the doctor said I had torn my calf muscle on my right leg, and this was what 2 weeks prior to me heading to Wyoming to hunt for a week. But we rehabbed it, and I went out there with a ace bandage. Luckily, calf muscles heal themselves, and it didn't get into my Achilles. But that was a great bird. I'm proud of that bird. But that's I literally, when I carried the bird back up to the top of the hill, I had to walk backwards all the way up the hill because I could not walk forwards because I had ripped my calf muscle. So I guess I came out on the better end of that deal, but not by much.
Yeah, I stopped by your shop. I guess it was a few days, the day or two after that, to drop something off or get I forget what it was, but I stopped by the shop there and yeah, you were in bad shape and you're like, "Well, and I'm going to Wyoming in 2 weeks." I'm like, "Boy, I hope you take you a take you a wheelchair, take you a scooter, find out some way to roll around up there." But no, that
Well,
was
we made it happen, and honestly, by the time I got there, it was. I won't say it's fine. I can still feel it a little bit, but I was back. I was I was back where I could hang with 2 32-year-olds for the entire week, and I didn't feel like I was lagging too far behind. So I guess I was okay.
yeah, worked out all right. That's one of the worst things. You got a trip, vacation or trip coming up, and you got an injury, you can't fully enjoy it. That's the worst. So you alluded to a story in Florida from this year about why you want to get to the bird quickly. So what happened there?
Yeah. So we've been hunting at Hawk Creek Outfitters down in Florida for years, and just and we will continue to hunt down there for years because it's just it's such a nice departure from reality of hunting these Georgia birds. I mean, and I'm not saying that they're easy, but you hear a lot of gobbling. You hear a lot of you see, because you're hunting down in Florida. You get to in Georgia you hear a lot more than what you actually see. And in Florida, you get to see it and hear it because there are a lot of pasture birds, and it's just always just a lot of fun. And I had been waiting for several years to get to go down there and hunt again. And the first morning I was there, Maddie and I have killed several doubles. I don't know how many doubles we've killed, but we've killed several. And Maddie's always shot first. And this particular morning, um, we were set up on some birds on the roost, and we set some decoys out in front of me against my better judgment. But a good buddy of mine named Mark Hughes said, "No, no, 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 put the decoys out," and we did. And I called to the birds off the roost, and they were just hammering everything I did, and they flew down. Honestly, they flew down before they should have. I was like, it's still stinking dark. We're not even going to be able to shoot these things. They flew down so early, and they sat there and stared at those decoys for what seemed like 5 minutes. So it was probably only about 30 seconds to a minute. But and then they turned and stuck their nose up and just walked away, and were gone. They weren't coming into those decoys. And I said, that's been usually been my experience whenever I've tried a decoy, but after a while, Maddie and I chose to get up and run up to the head of this cypress swamp. And because we knew they were on the other side of the cypress swamp, we could see the hens. We couldn't see the gobblers, but we could see the hens, and we knew they weren't going to be too far. So we got up in the point of this cypress swamp, and um, gradually the hens started working back to us. And right by us, we had them in a little pinch point between the head of this swamp and the head of a pond. And the hens went by at 15 to 20 yards from us. And I told Maddie, I said, look, those hens, those gobblers are not going to be that far away. And I don't know if she said it right then or if she said it a little bit later, but just a second or two later, it wasn't long. She said, well, I can see them right there. Here they come. And two strutters are coming right down Maddie's gun barrel, but they're out about 100 yards, and they get into about 75, and then they hook right, and when as they start hooking right, Maddie basically tells me I don't have a shot when they go to over her right shoulder. And at this point, they weren't really in range, but they were too close to um, for her to turn or do anything like that. So finally, I just had the bright idea. I said, "Okay, well, Maddie, I'm going to shoot first. As soon as I shoot, I'm going to go into the fighting purrs or doing something like that. We're going to get the other one back, and instead of the way we've always done it, we're going to do it in reverse. I shoot first, you shoot second. Problem with doing that is you got to make the first one die before you can shoot the second one. And I shot and immediately went into focusing on getting the second bird to commit back to the bird that I was just certain was dead. And I did hit the bird, and this is unfortunate, but um, all of a sudden the bird that I had just shot and killed was running across the pasture right there, and I got up and tried to put it down, and I wasn't able to. And down there at Hall Creek Outfitters, the rule is if you touch a bird, if you wound a bird, you hunt that bird and that bird only the rest of the week. And I'm fairly satisfied that that bird was mortally wounded. So we went back. My brother-in-law Brent, he killed a bird that morning. Then he and I went back and looked, and then the next day we went back and looked, tried to find feathers, and um, the owners down there tried to give me a pass and say maybe you think you just missed, maybe you just missed. And I was like, I'm sitting here with my daughter. I'm not going to lie. She knows I hit the bird. I know I hit the bird. God knows I hit the bird. So, I said, I didn't miss. So I just, the first morning I had to put my gun up. I was done. But ultimately, that was sort of that's probably the key. That moment set off what I think the theme of this year has been is you know, you're going to find what you go looking for. And at that moment, I was not real happy. I've been waiting so long to get back down there to my, this is my Disney World that I go to, and got back down there. And for the first morning to ruin it for the next 3 days, I was like, this only happens to me. This is the only kind of stuff that happens to me. And then I stopped and I said, you know what? We're going to find what we're looking for. And if we're looking for misery, if we're looking for excuses, that's what we're going to find. But, there were my daughter and several other friends in camp that I could have been a real jerk about it and put my, got everything up on, got my back up and could have ruined the whole week for 3 days for 5 other people. And I just decided, I wasn't going to do that. And I'll be honest with you, the first day that was an act. It was really hard at that moment to not act like a jerk. I really wanted to be a jerk, and I'm good at being a jerk. But I didn't want to, that's where I really wanted to act. But I didn't want to ruin the week. And then at that time, I came back and told my wife, I said, that's the best vacation I've ever had in my life. And, I spent the rest of the next 3 days without a gun, helping other people find turkeys and trying to get somebody else on a bird. And everybody else ended up killing a bird. It was great. Now, Maddie, my, the turkey killer, Maddie, my youngest daughter, she averages a bird in Florida about every 57 minutes she's in the state of Florida. But this year she had to work hard. They weren't responding. And she hunted her 3 days, and she was done. And we hadn't killed a turkey, hadn't clicked a safety off. But our friends down there at Hall Creek said, "Look, let's stick her over here. We got other hunters coming in. Let's stick her over on another piece of property that is not being hunted." And we put her over there, and she was able to kill a bird that 3.5 days she was able to kill a bird. And so that made it all good. So everybody came home with a turkey except for me. I came home with an empty casing. I came home with 3 empty casings, actually. But that's why that this year I've been, because I thought that bird in Florida was dead. I literally watched him roll over and was like, okay, let's just worry about this second bird. Let's get this second bird dead. And probably should have spent a little bit more time getting that first one dead before you start worrying about the second one.
Right. No, that's I remember you like in our Pistol Creek group text. I remember
Mhm.
hearing about you having you missed in Florida, and that's a tough way to start a trip day one, like you said. But that kind of brings up something I brought up and talked about in I had like a mental health episode on here, mental health and fishing, and how like you can be down and out, low confidence, unhappy, and fishing is not as fun. You don't catch as many fish. If you're hunting, you're there, you're already defeated if you go in there with a bad attitude. It makes everybody else around you, droop down and not be as happy. So
Right.
that's but and it is you gotta be mentally strong to, battle through it and just to decide, you know what, I'm in Florida, I'm on a trip, with my daughter, in your case. So that's you gotta be mentally strong to battle through that. And that's the social media nowadays. You see everybody posting the turkey kills, posting the big buck kills, posting the big fish being caught, and you're like, man, like that's like what everybody sees, and that's just like the goal for a lot of people. If you
Right.
don't have the picture, it's not a successful hunt. And I tell you, some of my favorite hunts, species set aside, some of my favorite hunts are the ones where I screwed up on a turkey, where
Mhm.
we almost killed one. Those are some of the best hunts, most memorable times ever being in the woods. But it's like if I go into a spot and all right, I'm gonna kill a turkey today. That's my goal. And it should, of course, as a turkey hunter, your goal is to, make the bird die, obviously.
Right.
But just
That's what we're trying to do.
yeah, we're trying to give the bird a headache, and that is obviously what we are trying to do. Kill they're arrogant. We want to put them down, right?
Mhm.
But there's more to it, and it's like it's this type of stuff. Me and you talking about hunts, sitting back around the campfire. That's the like at Pistol Creek after the hunt. And during deer season, that's some of the funnest times you can have is just sitting around a campfire, swapping BS stories, and it's just that's the camaraderie that hunting was formed upon. And I think, and I'm not saying you do this, but I feel like a lot of like the social media, the TikTokers, all the social media hunters build it up where you got to be wearing the Sitka, wearing the high dollar gear, killing a bird every time you go in the woods, and it's like that's some people are getting off base there, and I've kind of got off on a tangent there, but I feel like that's the
Well, I mean, the nice thing about turkey hunting is it's you can measure your success in a couple of different ways. You don't. I've had a lot of very successful turkey hunts that ended with no shots fired. Um, I can't say that about any other species I hunt. Now, I think if I were to, live in the western states where there was elk, maybe I could say that about elk. But I can't imagine any other species that I've hunted that I could sit there and come back and say I've had a successful hunt um, on something where I didn't pull the trigger. And but turkey allows that. And the one thing that everybody needs to remember is, and I'm quoting Donald Jarrett on this one, is the master of the turkey woods is the turkey, and he usually wins. However, we need to when we go to pull the trigger, we need to kill him. And there's too many bad things that can happen when we make a bad shot. And I made one in Florida. The other thing about what you were just talking about is something a theme from the Wyoming and what turned out an impromptu trip to Montana. The theme from that whole weekend last week was Chris Eastridge. Chris Eastridge came up with this. Actually, I think he quoted his wife: "Is God don't like ugly." And when you go out there and you start showing an attitude and a little bit of whatnot, it usually doesn't work out good for you, and that's because God don't like ugly. And I tell you what, Wyoming and Montana turned out to be the single greatest week of hunting I've ever had in my life, bar none. Never
Wow.
had anything like that. It was. I got a text from Chris today that said, "Hey, and it was a group text with with Clinton Phipps in there as well. It said, just remember, a week ago today, we had killed 10 birds in 2 states in 3 days. Just remember that when you're back at work." And I'm just like, wow, that seems like a lifetime ago, but that was an amazing trip. And the theme of that trip was God don't like ugly, and we had the time of our life. We laughed. We laughed until I literally was trying to close a cattle gate and was laughing so hard I couldn't get the cattle gate closed. And we cried tears of joy. I got to watch Chris Easters kill his first ever grand slam, sitting right there. And I chuckled as the bird walked out at 15 yards, sitting there realizing this guy don't know who he's messing with. And Chris shot him. We shot a little video as soon as Chris shot that bird. We shot a little video, um, because we couldn't go to the bird. It, the bird was laying there, and we were getting ready to run up. And we jumped up, we hugged, and we celebrated Chris getting his grand slam. And I said, "Come on, let's go get your bird." Well, before we could get to the bird, we realized there was other birds, and I had not killed a bird in Wyoming yet on this trip. So we had to stop. Chris was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, there's birds out there. Hold on, let's stop." We couldn't go pick Chris's bird up because if we got into this little gap that the bird was laying in, the other turkeys would have seen us. So we just sort of sat back and whispered a little fun video. And it was a trip of a lifetime. I mean, this turkey season has been bittersweet. Some of the greatest experiences, and every turkey season, you have some of the greatest experiences of your life, and then some of the worst experiences I've dealt with this year. It's some, just really bad stuff has happened turkey season, not turkey related, just, on a personal level, some really bad stuff has happened. But um, it made me really proud when Quentin and Chris and two other friends of ours, Mark Hughes and Jeremy Barton, came back, and we all agreed God don't like ugly. So had I gone to Florida and really gotten upset because I had boogered that bird up, I could have ruined it for everybody. And I chose not to. It was an act at first because I really wanted to be a jerk. I really wanted to show my, what, but I didn't. And because I didn't, I was able to experience one of the greatest trips I've had hunting ever up until I went to Wyoming and Montana this year.
Wow. Now, that's you went and had the best week of your best hunting week of your life, and
Period,
that's
bar none.
period, bar none, species aside, location aside, and
Mm-hmm.
that's after having a hit slash miss, a hunt that didn't end the way you wanted it to in Florida,
In
and that's
Florida.
the yeah, and that's the point where as hunters, as human beings, we can choose to, like you said, stay positive. God don't like ugly. There's a pro fisherman named Gerald Swindle, and he has like one of his big time things he puts on his jersey, and he has bracelets. It's PMA, positive mental attitude,
Mm-hmm.
and because he fishes for a living. I mean, if he has sponsorships and things like that for sure, but
Mm-hmm.
if he doesn't perform, he doesn't put food on the table. I mean, that's
Uh,
you got to be positive. You got to flush the bad stuff, and that's you could have went to Wyoming with an anxious mind and an anxious heart of, well, crap, if I see a turkey, I'm gonna screw it up, or if so and so sees one, he'll screw it up and miss. You could have had a truly anxious and uneasy mind about it, but like you said, you look at the bright side, you get things, you move past it, and and that's through any bad thing in your life in your day. I'm talking to myself here, but I could get mad at dropping something, breaking something, just, get mad, slam a door, just but if you can flush things, I like that saying of God doesn't like ugly, God don't like ugly. That's good. But that's for anything in this life, hunting, fishing, jobs,
well,
family.
and the turkey usually wins. You if you don't if you if you are prone to a negative attitude and a sour attitude, then turkey hunting's probably not for you. because he's going to beat you like a drum a lot of times. And I've had a good year. I think, in Georgia, and I had a great year in Florida. I just personally didn't bring home a turkey, but I had a blast. And Georgia, I did really good. Wyoming, didn't know I was going to go to Montana. But I've also had years where I didn't do so good. And I was able to learn, when you have some success, you need to embrace it and enjoy it. But stay humble in it, because the turkey is going to humble you really quickly. Unlike any other animal I've hunted, there may be an animal out there that's more humbling to hunt than a turkey. I hadn't hunted him, so just keep positive attitude. Remember that this is all a blessing that we gifted to get to do this, and instead of getting angry when we don't have what we view as success, just be glad we got to do it again.
Right. And you said something earlier too that I wanted to touch on. It was no other species of animal that we hunt typically can end without bagging a trophy, and you still get that positive outlook, or you could have a great hunt, because you can go deer hunting and see nothing, hear nothing, have no evidence, and you're like, I learned nothing except for they weren't here today. So turkeys, one thing I do love about turkey hunting is usually if you're around birds, you have that good experience. So, in this on that trip up north, you said you went to Wyoming and Montana. How
Mhm.
was it? You got to fit, or was it public land both places? Were y'all up on a guided trip, or what was that trip like?
It was public land. In Wyoming, we had paid a private landowner access from his land to get to the public land, and he actually was actually providing us a place to stay as well. But his personal private land, it's a cattle operation. There's no trees on it, therefore there's no turkeys. But we could get in. We were most of what we were hunting in Wyoming was the Thunder Basin National Grasslands, and but we were able to access it through some public area that is. I mean, I think the Thunder Basin is 89,000 acres, if I'm remember correctly. We were able to access it through some private areas, which was nice. But we had planned to go out there and do that. We knew Sean Fricky with Skyline Outfitters. He does elk, mule deer, bison, or buffalo. I don't remember which one. Mountain lions, prairie dogs. He does everything, and it's all fully guided. He doesn't do it. He doesn't care about turkeys. He's like, if you want to come hunt turkeys at self guided, I'll give you a place to sleep, and that's it. And that's what we've done. This is my second trip out there, and it's just phenomenal hunting. Um, and we were fortunate enough, um, with me and another gentleman, Mark Hughes, that had gone out there. He and I had gone out there 2 years ago. We took, three other friends of ours, actually five other friends of ours, and but with a little bit of knowledge, because we had been out there before and we had been successful the last time we were out there. Well, we were done in 24 hours in Wyoming, and we had planned all along, if we got done in Wyoming, we were going to go back to South Dakota, to Rapid City, and we were going to hunt the Black Hills, because you can buy an over-the-counter license in South Dakota over there. And we when the first night, Clinton Phipps and Mark Hughes and Jeremy Barton all killed their birds, and it was basically Chris and I left to hunt. The next day, um, we had talked to him about, well, I think Mark and Jeremy and Clinton are going to head back to South Dakota and hunt, while me and Clinton finish up here in Wyoming. I mean, excuse me, while me and Chris finish up here in Wyoming. And he said, why are you going to South Dakota? Montana's just 20 miles up the road. Now, 20 miles out there is an hour drive. But we said, really? And my dream my whole life was that one day I would get to hunt in Montana. And I didn't care if it was, if I was hunting anything. I just wanted to hunt in Montana one day. And so we pulled up and found some public land in Montana, and Mark and Jeremy, who were both done, they headed on up there. Well, they killed birds the next day. Um, Chris and I got done we got to hunt Sunday afternoon, the afternoon hunt. 3 birds were killed the next day. Chris and I killed our birds. Then the three, Chris and Clinton and I took a day off um, and helped 2 other friends of ours get on some birds or whatnot. And then we headed to Montana. And we went to public land that we had never set foot on other than 24 hours earlier. We had never even seen on OnX. And by 11 o'clock that Wednesday morning, we had 3 turkeys dead. We killed 3 turkeys off that 640-acre piece of private land that we found walking in. We found several carcasses that this was, we realized, okay, this has been hunted before. This is probably not going to work out. And I mean, it was just an amazing trip. Not going to sit there and say that we were, you know, we hit it right. I'd love to sit here and tell you that it's just because um, we hunted harder, which we did hunt hard, or we hunted better, and I thought we hunted good. But in all honesty, the truth is we just hit it right, and we hit it on a good day, and three turkeys died before 11 o'clock that morning.
Yeah, that's a that's a fast paced day for sure. 3 turkeys to die that quickly, anywhere in the country. I mean, I'm sure there are guided places you can go where you could really stack them up like that, and people have done it in Georgia before. But
Mm-hmm.
how different is it? I know, like you were comparing Georgia to Florida earlier, in that Georgia, you can use the terrain to your advantage, where you may not see the turkey until you're ready to shoot the turkey. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's a lot of the hunts that I've been on is we hear him spitting, drumming, scratching the leaves, he's gobbling. All of a sudden, you hear a gunshot. You're like, "What are you shooting at?" And but your buddy who had the gun could see him, and the turkey died. You're like, "Well, I hope you look pretty." But how different is hunting in Georgia versus hunting up in a place like Wyoming or Montana? Because I've never been out there. I've
Yeah.
watched Yellowstone. I've watched Yellowstone, so I've seen what Montana looks like on the TV, and I've seen pictures, things like that. But
So,
how different?
well, I'm sitting here thinking about it, and honestly, every hunt that we had out there was exactly what you said. Um, you know, we didn't necessarily watch them come from 100 yards away across a big meadow in this open pasture. Um, one of them, I guess, Chris and Clinton did, but I was hitting in a bunch of brush back up from them. I didn't get to see Clinton's bird come in, and Clinton killed a big one. But the hunt was not a lot different. The gobbles obviously sound a lot different. The terrain, where you and I are from in North Georgia, I would tell you that the terrain's not nearly as bad. The hills may be bigger, but they ain't near as steep. That's how come a 50-year-old could keep up with 2 32-year-olds. Um, when I was out there, there was still, we were able to use the terrain to our advantage. It was a lot like here in Georgia. The only thing I would tell you that was really really different out there, and I'm not saying, because we got our butts kicked while we were out there in Montana that morning that we killed 3 birds by 11 o'clock. We also got our butt kicked for about an hour and a half by a turkey that ran up me and Chris Eastridge all over the side of that mountain and had wanted nothing to do with us. He gobbled at everything we did, but he would not come in. So a butt kicking out there feels just as bad as a butt kicking here in Georgia. But the only thing I would tell you that's really different is other than that one bird that whooped me and Chris, um, when we got a bird out there we heard a lot of gobbling. They were henned up really bad when we were out there. But when we got a bird to answer us, he generally died except for one turkey. And that was the turkey that whooped us pretty good. But I would I would caution people to that are sitting there going, so all you got to do is make them gobble and coming in. We had it's not that easy. We had to find the bird, the lone bird that wasn't with hens. Now, one bird we did call in with hens, but we also had a lot of birds just give us the cold shoulder, and they didn't want to have anything to do with us. The morning Chris killed his, it was we were listening to two other birds gobble their brains out, but they did not answer us one single time. They had hens with them, and so honestly, it's not a lot different. The scenery's, the flora and fauna is a little bit different in the woods you're in, and sometimes you can see a lot further than what you can see around here. And but as far as far as the hunting, it wasn't a whole lot different than what my 2023 has been here in Georgia, which has consisted of getting my butt kicked by every turkey that was henned up until I found two that were by themselves and I was able to kill them. You know, it wasn't a whole lot different. There was just a lot more gobbling out there. Yeah, if you hadn't been out west, you need to go out and experience that. We still claim we have more numbers in Georgia than what you do in some of the western states. I can't see that we've got more turkeys here than what they've got in Wyoming. That's just ridiculous. Maybe they're more concentrated in Wyoming. I don't know, but it's really nice to go out again and hear a lot of multiple gobbles. That in the morning and being able to get one to bring into you. So it was just a phenomenal trip. It was great fellowship. Like I said, the biggest thing I want to go out there is we didn't just kill 10 birds in 2 states in 3 days. What I want everybody to know about that trip to Wyoming and Montana was 5 grown men laughed until they cramped up in their sides and they cried tears of joy because of the experience we were having. It was just phenomenal.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about. I mean, the trips we go on, the things we kill, that's great. But it's just the people you're with, the stories you get to tell while you're there, the stories you've gained from it. Because I mean, that's a memory that you guys will have forever. I mean, you'll
Right.
be telling stories about the amount of birds you killed, and sure, maybe you hit it right, but don't discount you guys. Y'all are some certified killers. A lot of turkeys have died
No,
at
there
y'all's
there was
hands.
no quit, and and that was the one thing I got to say. In Wyoming, I was the last person. I was the last of the five to kill a turkey in Wyoming, and not a single one of them gave up until I was done.
Right.
When we went to Montana, Chris was the last to kill in Montana, and not a single one of us gave up. There was no quitting any of us, and it wasn't because we're these tough, die hard kind of guys. It's because we love it. If we didn't have a tag and couldn't take a gun, we'd have gone and done it anyways. We'd have just let them walk off at the end. We just love it.
Yeah. And I tell you, that's well, it sounds like a special trip. And like you said right there, sometimes going in the woods without a gun. I mean, I haven't done that, but I try to kill something if I'm going in the woods here lately. But Herb McClure, this is kind of circling back there. I've talked to Herb quite a few times in trits, and he said he learned the most just going out into the woods with a call and a camera, and just
Mm.
being around them. I mean, that's like I said, you guys have that kind of love for it, and that'll kill you a lot of turkeys, and it'll let you have a better time too. But
Well, the nice thing about turkey hunting is I don't, Maddie and I, especially when she was younger, would always, but we even talked about it this year. We've never left the woods where we didn't sit there and talk about something we learned that day. And I'm not saying I don't learn anything when I go deer hunting or any of the other hunting we do, but nothing like what turkey hunting. I mean, you get humbled and you get taught something every time you go out and do it. And um, sitting out there and experiencing it and getting beaten over and over and over again teaches you everything you need to know so that one day you start putting it together and start killing some turkeys.
yeah, for sure, it's There are plenty of great books, and a lot of guys on social media now are, putting out the stories and like the, kind of little shortened memoirs, I guess, of what they've learned, or some very well written pieces like the 10th Legion or the book by Herb McClure.
Mhm.
But it's the encyclopedia of knowledge that people gain from turkey hunting. Because I mean, sometimes it's very easy. Some people have the great piece of property. They go out, they hunt twice a year, they kill their two birds, boom, they're done. There's not a lot to do it, not a lot to to learn in those scenarios. But for the most part, the vast majority of people, it's just like you said, the amount of things you can learn, the amount of things you can discuss and talk about, and just learning for the next time. And that's is like turkey hunting is something that you can never quite fully master it. Like you said earlier, the turkey is the master of the turkey woods. They're the king, and they usually win. But like you'll never be 100% as a turkey hunter, and that's the you learn something every time. So that's a
Well,
special
and
special thing.
by human nature, we're arrogant because we're human and we think we can go out and make something happen. And one of the things that was so reinforced in Wyoming and Montana, and Chris Eastridge and I don't know how many times he and I have looked at each other and said, you know what, let's just sit down and let him tell us what he's going to do. And so many times you want to go, no, 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 let's call again, let's make him gobble, or let's go right over this ridge and see if we can see him. And what was reinforced so well in Wyoming and Montana was how many times that he and I, not just out there, but for the last several years we've hunted with each other. One of us has looked at the other and said, we just need to sit down and rate. Now it's like a race to see who can say, hey, let's just sit down and wait and see, let him tell. Because 10 minutes after we sit down and stop, we kill turkeys, you know, and that's things um, that patience comes with experience, but it's also something that's not human nature. You want to, no, 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 I'm gonna keep going, I'm gonna keep going, I'm gonna keep doing this. No, sometimes you got to back off. Sometimes you got to sit there and go, you know what, I'm just gonna let him tell me what he's doing before I go do this. And good things happen. I can't remember a time except for one time that Chris, and that was in Alabama last Saturday, that Chris Eastridge and I have sat there and said, you know what, let's sit there and let this bird tell us what he's going to do, that we didn't end up killing that turkey. That last Saturday in Alabama was the first time that we've ever done that and not killed a turkey directly afterwards.
Yeah, that's the last few years. That's something I've started doing more of. Is I guess you could call it arrogant, but like it's that an arrogant type of turkey hunter. In that I really enjoy hitting a call, hearing a gobble. Like if they're not there are some days, and this is a problem of mine. Some days, if they don't want to gobble, I don't want to kill them. Like, nah, I'm gonna go home. I don't want to wait. I don't want to. But you could be the better turkey hunter is the more patient one, like you said, to sit and wait, not to make him gobble, to gobble. And some of my best hunts the last few years have been we'll be on birds, they gobble on the roost, that maybe they're henned up, but then nothing's happening. We're calling, we're walking, we're covering, we're up on national forest, mostly up here in Lumpkin. And then I'll look at my buddy Randy Otis, is who I hunt with a lot of times up here on public land for turkeys. I'll like, let's just find a comfortable spot on the edge of this road and just hang out for a minute. Like,
Mm-hmm.
don't call, just talk, whisper, talk to him, see what's going on in his life. I'll talk about what's going on in my life, whatever. And then we'll call every 10 or 15 minutes. And, half the time at this one place we hunted a few years ago, if you would just sit down and shut up, the turkeys would gobble on their own. They wouldn't be gobbling at you, but that's all right. You just sit still and like, okay, well, he gobbled once, give him a few more minutes. Okay, he's going that way. We can circle around, we can make a move on him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's killed quite a few turkeys for us, where we just sat down like, we know they're in here. We know they're we're within a few hundred yards of these birds, most likely. Sit down, shut up, and just let it happen. And that's very hard to do. I don't like doing it, but that is the way to go most of the time.
Well, and I don't like deer hunting turkeys. If I wanted to deer hunt turkeys, I would just wait till the fall and I'd deer hunt deer. But part of what makes turkey hunting so fun is the interaction with them and the being able to, it's active. You're actively pursuing this. But at the same time, and I won't say that Chris and I've ever sat down and just sit there and said, "Well, we haven't heard anything. Let's just sit here and wait." No, we're probably going to hunt another turkey somewhere else or a biscuit or something else. But when we've had turkeys out there gobbling and we realize, you know what, we're going to bump this bird, we're going to call this bird to death. We're not in a position. This bird is not. He's answering us, but he doesn't sound that excited. About it. That's when we say, hey, let's just sit down and see what this bird's going to do. And that's a deadly maneuver. Just when you've got him gobbling, if he's answering you, but you're not in a position he's coming to you, just sit down and let him tell you what he's going to do. Because this year has been the year that there's not been a lot of gobbling in the southeast. I haven't talked to anybody this year who has said um, that, oh yeah, they're gobbling their brains out. Now maybe there's a morning here or there where they've done well, but at the same time, everybody's seeing a lot of turkeys. They're just not gobbling a lot. And both turkeys I killed in Georgia, I just happened to strike them at the right time. And there was, and the first bird I killed in Georgia, he came in silent to me, but I had worked him the day before. I should have killed him the day before. But I'm that guy that always sits there and says, whatever we do, we ain't going to let a turkey get out of here alive. We're not going to let him come in and not take the shot. Well, I didn't take the shot, but I had a good shot on him, and it, but he had come so far so quick. I just knew he was going to walk 3 more feet and get out of the thick stuff, but he didn't. He turned right around and went away. And I spent the next 2 hours down there letting him gobble at everything I did, but he would not break and come back to me. But next day I was able to slip in there and tried to find him, and I did. I just set up. I said, I know he's in here. I just went in there and set up and called every once in a while, and he never gobbled, never heard anything. I just happened to cut my eyes over to the left, and he was coming in there with his head up, looking around for me, and I decided at that point I would shut up and let him just walk right in front of me, and he did. Second bird I killed in Georgia, um, it was the one I talked about earlier, and I'd been seeing him strutting and everything out in one of the pastures, and I finally just parked the tractor, went down there, yelped at him 3 times, and I hit him at the right time. This was quarter to 5 in the afternoon. He you could look at him out in that field by himself, and I was like, he's by himself. He's a dead bird walking, and he came right in, and that's the majority of everybody blames it on being a suicidal 2-year-old. I don't agree with that. I think there's a lot of times you just find a bird by himself and he's going to come running in. And it doesn't matter what age he is, especially late in the season. That's when you kill your big birds anyways. They come running in because they're lonely.
Yeah, a lot of times you got to find that right bird during turkey season for it to work out perfectly. But it's getting pretty late here, so we can go ahead and look ahead to the future with you and another episode that we're wanting to do. So John has we're calling it the Gospel of Pistol Creek, and he alluded to it here a while back about what it involves and just the crazy supernatural, God filled, faith filled things that have lined up around Pistol Creek and what has helped make Pistol Creek what it is today, and just all the people involved, the things that have happened and fallen into place. And we're gonna do a much more well produced thing than I normally do. We're gonna try to get it in a nicer studio, nicer equipment, nicer audio, visual things like that, so we can kind of encapsulate it. It'll be on my YouTube channel and my podcast, but it will probably also put it on Pistol Creek's YouTube.
Yeah, we'll get it
And
up
that,
there as well.
yeah, and it's kind of It'll I don't know how long it'll be, but I know John said
It's
he's been kind of
48 minutes when I rehearsed it the other night for Austin's memorial service. So,
okay.
um,
Okay.
but if you start talking, it could go a while. But
Yeah, and that's
um,
gonna be one where I do a lot of shutting up and listening, but, it's your story, it's the story of what Pistol Creek is and what it means and just, I feel like it's an important thing to do, to let people know, because that's, all the big companies, I'm sure they have a corny, origin story of it started in a garage or, whatever. Every company has their where they started. And I feel like it's, knowing that there is a gospel of Pistol Creek, I feel like it's time to share it.
well, and that's the really neat thing about the Gospel of Pistol Creek. There was never a company ever thought we never thought about having a company. It just sort of happened. But I'm going to leave hanging on that because I'm proud of Pistol Creek. Austin, um, rest his soul, he and I worked hard at it, but we didn't work near as hard as what we had to at other things. And seems like Pistol Creek sure that did have some divine intervention along every step of the way. Because and we're proud of what we've done, but we can't take credit for it. This was by design.
Right. And to the listeners that don't know, Pistol Creek lost a very pivotal and crucial part. Austin Long passed away earlier this year.
Yeah.
And we're all hurting still, but that's if y'all I haven't said anything about that on here. So that we're referring to Austin Long, and we, rest in peace. We miss him. We love him. But so that's what John was talking about and referring to there. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that a lot. The Gospel of Pistol Creek and hearing about it and hearing all the I'm sure I've heard some of it and know about some of it, but I know I don't know all of it. So I'm looking forward to
Well,
hearing that
no,
from you.
nobody knows any all of it anymore because there's been so many. Basically, we're going to talk about how there's no such thing in God's world as coincidence, and give you some examples of, and you're going to say, going all the way back to my trip in Florida this year when I stop and watch a turkey get shot by a kid from Ohio that it turns out I know and who has stayed right here in such as Georgia with me. I mean, there's just so many what if you don't believe in God, you would have to call coincidence. But then at the same time, you're going, there's no way this is coincidence.
Yeah.
There's just so many stories like that involved in it that tune in. I hope it'll be inspirational for you.
Yeah, and that'll be we'll try to get that sometime this summer. I don't know if it'll be June or July, but we'll definitely it'll probably depend on availability of the studio we're going to use. So we'll definitely this summer we're going to get that thing recorded and pushed out. So that's
I may even try to get Beverly in there, but we'll have to just tell her to keep her mouth shut. So
yeah.
she's got a team. It'll go 3 hours if she gets to running her mouth.
Yeah. I mean, if you wanted anybody else who's been in on the ground floor of it, I mean,
Yeah, well,
the
she
more
was
the
there in the
merrier.
beginning. I mean, she was originally she was in the backdrop, but she witnessed it all happen, and she was very integral in pointing out to me and Austin several times. Um, you think this is coincidence here, and I knew it wasn't, but Austin did, and all, that's part of the gospel of Pistol Creek is that what happened in Austin's life. That's really special.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to that, John, and so
All
it
right.
sounds like you guys have had a fantastic year so far. Turkeys have been turkeys have been shot and called to all over the country, and that's the far reach of Pistol Creek is amazing. I mean, how many? And you may or may not know this for an estimate. How many states do you think Pistol Creek has had a hand in killing turkeys this year?
Golly, some of them are just getting started up, so we're not done yet. But well, no, I was about to say, I don't think we've killed a bird in Arizona this year, and I don't think we've killed a bird in Hawaii um, this year. We've killed birds in both states before, but I don't think we've done that this year. Um, I don't know. We've the actual creek bank guys. We haven't hit that many states. Although Hunter Young and Reese Dockery are going worldwide. They're on a world tour, it seems like. But I would venture to say at this point we've killed turkeys in 30 states so far this year.
I didn't know if it was gonna be 10 or 15, but 30, that's,
Mm-hmm.
you don't realize how far Pistol
Yeah, and
Creek
that's
has
not just the
gone
creek
or
bank
can't.
guys. That's people
Oh, for
that are
sure.
sending us pictures and saying, "Hey, I've killed one
Yeah,
here," and this, that, and other. So,
yeah, yeah.
I'd venture to say 30 is a give me a plus or minus on that one, but I'd say 30
Right,
states.
right. How many turkeys do you think?
Uh, I have no idea.
What
It
about okay, we can make this one easier on you. How many turkeys have been killed by the creek bank this year, do you think?
40.
40?
I'm guessing 4. I'm going to say in there in the range that there on the group text we've got. There's 20 guys on there, or 20 guys and gals on there. Um, Georgia has the most conservative game laws at 2 apiece. We've got some Georgia guys that have had a couple of, that are usually killing them every year, and they've had a tough year or so this year. But then you've got folks in Alabama. But then you've got people like Donald Jarrett that have killed them in Texas and South Dakota and Nebraska, and then you've got me and Chris and Clinton killing them in Georgia, Alabama, Wyoming, South Dakota. I'd say it's very easily on the creek bank. There's on average 40 to, and I could be wrong. I could go back to the group text and look, but
Yeah.
I mean, you're on the group text. What do you think? You think 40 is conservative? Or you think we've killed more than that?
Yeah, I'd say, yeah, 40 to 50, so somewhere in that number, of,
Mm.
like, kills that the creek bank has had a hand in, or pull the trigger on. Because I know Tony Ryder guides at Hall Creek, so there's no telling how many turkeys he's seen die
Well, I
this
mean, if we're
year.
going to count that, I'm talking about
Yeah,
trigger pulls. If we're
yeah,
going to talk about that, Donald Jarrett at the operation he's got in South Dakota, they killed 33 turkeys in South Dakota, and then I don't remember how many in Nebraska. So I mean,
yeah.
if you
So
count
that
that,
yeah. Yeah, that
I'm
number
talking about
gets
actual trigger pulls
right, right.
ourselves. So it's probably
Gotcha.
that would be which I've killed 5 this year, Maddie. I mean, there's 6 between me and Maddie alone. So
Right. Well,
so it's been a good year. It's been a really good year, and but at the same time, um, I'm not bragging about it because for about 3 years I've needed a good year.
yeah.
So
Yep, yep. Well, good deal. Super proud of what all you and Austin and Beverly and everybody has built and just what it is nowadays. I mean, I remember whenever it first, the idea first came out, I got a couple of calls that don't say, I don't even know if they say Pistol Creek on them. It was some of the first few calls I got from you, just like the first couple runs. And I was like, I'm excited. Maybe it'll get big, maybe it won't, but either way, I was excited for you. So it's just, I'm sure it's gratifying for you to see the reach it has, and the community it's built. I mean, that's the big thing. Is it's not just about building a call,
well,
making money,
that
killing
that's
turkeys.
that's
It's
the,
it's
that's the biggest thing. I mean, it's I don't anticipate retiring off Pistol Creek. I mean, I'd love to. I'm not going to ever limit what it could do, but I'd never be friends with Clinton Phipps from Oklahoma, or for that matter, Chris Eastridge from Alabama, if it weren't for a turkey call, you know. And I just had the trip of my lifetime with 2 people I'd have never met if it hadn't been for this. So
yeah,
really, really blessed to be a part of this and be along for the ride.
yeah. Like I said, I know you, and I know where your heart is. The community side of it, and what all that means. The Creek Bank. I mean, heck, that's, just the fact that you have a Creek Bank full of guys and gals that are fantastic people, good human beings, God fearing people. I mean, that right there, that alone is an accomplishment. So
Right.
super proud for you, happy for you,
Thank you.
happy to be a part of it. I'm not much of a turkey hunter. I screw up more than I kill,
I
but
will too.
yeah, happy to be a part. So, but thanks for coming on tonight, John, and we
All right.
will see you later.
All right. Well, thank you. I look forward to doing the Gospel of Pistol Creek.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for listening to the Bucktails Podcast.